The glass doors of Velvet Luke's boutique slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, chandeliers glittered like frozen rain. Perfume hung in the air, and rows of designer clothes gleamed beneath golden light. But at that moment, everyone turned to look at him. A man in his late 30s, wearing a wrinkled shirt, torn shoes, and holding a little girl's hand, her tiny dress faded from too many washes. "Daddy, are we allowed here?" the girl whispered. He smiled faintly. "Of course, sweetheart. We're just looking." But the laughter began almost instantly. Behind the counter, two salesgirls exchanged glances. "Oh my God, he must be lost," one whispered. "Maybe he came to use the air conditioning," the other chuckled. The man ignored them. His eyes were calm, but tired. The kind of tired that comes from too many rejections and not enough sleep. He walked slowly past the expensive displays, stopping near a mannequin wearing a white dress. The little girl's eyes widened. "Daddy, that one looks like a princess." He smiled again, that kind of smile a father gives when he wishes he could give the world, but can't. "How much for this dress?" he asked softly. The salesgirl raised an eyebrow. "Sir, that's $2,400. Do you want to try it?" The tone was sharp, mocking. A few customers snickered nearby. The man's hands trembled, but his voice stayed steady. "No, I was just asking. My daughter liked it." He turned to leave, but his daughter tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, can I just touch it once?" He hesitated, then nodded. She reached out, her small fingers brushing the silk. For a moment she looked happy. That's when another voice cut through the store. "Excuse me, sir," said a tall manager with a forced smile. "I'm afraid you can't touch the merchandise unless you're purchasing." The girl stepped back instantly, lowering her head. The man looked at her, and his eyes broke. "I understand," he whispered. As they turned toward the exit, one of the salesgirls muttered loudly, "Maybe try the thrift store next time." Laughter followed them all the way to the door, but just before they stepped out, a deep, commanding voice echoed from the upper floor. "Wait, who told them to leave?" Every head turned. The store owner, a woman in an elegant black suit, was standing at the top of the staircase. Her eyes were fixed on the poor man. And suddenly her face went pale. "Daniel," she whispered. The man froze, because that voice, that name, belonged to someone he hadn't seen in 7 years. For a moment, the world stood still. The laughter in the store died. Everyone stared, from the cashiers to the rich women holding their shopping bags mid-air. The owner, Isabella Moreau, the woman whose name was printed on every golden tag inside the boutique, slowly descended the stairs, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Her eyes were locked on the man in the torn shoes. "Daniel, it's really you?" she said softly. Daniel's throat tightened. He hadn't heard that voice since the night everything fell apart. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he replied quietly, trying to keep his composure. "I think there's some mistake. We were just leaving." But Isabella shook her head. "Mistake? The mistake was letting you walk away 7 years ago?" The staff exchanged confused glances. The manager looked pale. "Ma'am, you know this man?" Isabella turned to him sharply. "He's the reason this store even exists." Gasps rippled through the store. The same people who laughed a minute ago suddenly looked uncomfortable. Daniel looked down, his voice low. "Please not here. My daughter doesn't need to hear about the past." Isabella's gaze softened as she looked at the little girl, hiding behind her father's leg. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl whispered Lily. "Beautiful name," Isabella smiled faintly. "Would you like some ice cream, Lily?" Lily's eyes lit up, but she looked up at her father for permission. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. As one of the attendants guided Lily to the store's cafe area, Isabella turned back to Daniel. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You disappeared, Daniel. After everything we built together. After that night, you were just gone. I searched for you." Daniel's eyes glimmered with something between pain and regret. "I didn't disappear. I was destroyed." Isabella blinked. "Destroyed? By what?" He looked away. "By the truth you never got to hear?" Silence filled the air again. Outside, rain began to patter softly against the boutique's glass windows, like the universe was listening. The same salesgirl who mocked him earlier shifted nervously, her face red with shame. But Daniel didn't notice. He was lost somewhere between memory and heartbreak, remembering the night he lost. Everything. His job, his wife, his home, and Isabella. She finally realized something was terribly wrong. "Daniel," she whispered. "Who is Lily's mother?" Daniel's eyes darkened. He whispered, almost trembling. "She never met her mother, because she died giving birth." Isabella froze, and then her hand went to her mouth, tears welling instantly. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You mean Anna?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, Anna's gone." And with those words, 7 years of silence, pain, and secrets came crashing back like a storm. The rain outside grew heavier, each drop hitting the glass like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Inside the boutique, Silence had wrapped around them like a ghost. Isabella's fingers trembled as she whispered, "Anna, your wife? She's dead?" Daniel nodded slowly. "She passed away the night Lily was born." Her voice cracked. "But Anna was my wife," Daniel finished, his tone steady yet broken. Isabella's breath hitched. Her knees weakened slightly. She reached for the counter to steady herself. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't even know she was married." She stopped calling after that fight. Daniel's eyes lifted, pain flashing like lightning. "Because she was pregnant, Isabella. And she was scared." The words hit like thunder. Isabella's heart pounded in her chest. "Pregnant? Anna." She told me she was leaving because she needed space." Daniel's voice hardened. "She needed you. But you turned your back." She flinched. "Don't say that." "You don't know what was happening then." He took a deep breath, his jaw tight. "I know enough. You were both fighting over your father's company, remember? She wanted to build something simple, honest, but you wanted luxury, prestige. I built this empire for both of us." Isabella snapped. "She walked away." Daniel's eyes glimmered with hurt. "She didn't walk away. She was pushed." The words cut through the air like a blade. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, Isabella felt her world tilt. "What are you saying, Daniel?" She whispered. He reached into his worn jacket and pulled out a folded letter. Old, yellowed, the edges soft from being read too many times. "She wrote this the night before she died. I found it in her hospital bag." Isabella took the paper with trembling hands. The handwriting was familiar, soft loops, elegant curves. She read aloud through the tears that blurred her vision. "Dear Bella, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I didn't want to leave angry. You were my sister, my best friend, but I can't fight you anymore. I love Daniel, and I know you'll never forgive me for it. Please, if something happens to me, look after our baby. She need love more than money ever could." The letter fell from Isabella's hand and fluttered to the floor. She stared at Daniel, her lips trembling. "You mean to tell me Lily is Anna's daughter? My sister's child?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, your niece." Isabella gasped, her voice breaking into a whisper. "My God, all these years. She was right here in front of me." Tears streamed down her cheeks, mascara mixing with guilt. All those years chasing success, building luxury. She had lost her only sister, and the last piece of her had just walked out in torn shoes. Daniel turned away, heading toward the door. "Come on, Lily, we shouldn't stay where we're not welcome." But before he could step outside, Isabella's voice cracked through the silence. "Daniel, wait." He stopped, his hand on the door. "I lost my sister once," she whispered. "I won't lose her child, too." The rain had finally stopped. Outside, the world shimmered, streets glistening like silver ribbons under the soft afternoon sun. Inside the boutique, the tension had softened too. Daniel hesitated by the door, still holding Lily's small hand. Her big brown eyes looked up at him, innocent, trusting. "Daddy, the lady looks sad," she whispered. Isabella wiped her tears, forcing a faint smile. "She's right," she said softly. "Please, don't go. At least let me make things right." "For Anna?" Daniel turned slowly, his face unreadable. He wanted to leave, but pride told him to. But something in Isabella's eyes reminded him of Anna's gentle smile. "Fine," he said quietly, "but only for lunch." Lily's face lit up. "Can we have cake too?" For the first time that day, Isabella laughed, a sound that carried both joy and sorrow. "As much as you want, sweetheart." 2 hours later, they sat together at La Mire, an elegant restaurant nearby. The waiter pulled out chairs, and even Daniel felt the stares, his old shirt looking painfully out of place among the suits and diamonds. But Lily didn't care. She was busy folding her napkin into funny shapes, giggling quietly. Isabella watched her with soft eyes. "She has Anna's smile," she whispered. Daniel looked down. "Every time she laughs, it's like hearing her mother again." For a moment, the silence was peaceful, until a new voice interrupted it. "Bella? I didn't know you had company." Isabella froze. Daniel turned. A tall, confident man in a gray suit approached their table. His expensive watch glinted under the lights. His eyes, sharp, calculating, scanned Daniel from head to toe. "Oh," Isabella said, standing quickly. Daniel, this is Ethan Cole, my fiancé. Daniel's hand stiffened around his fork. Ethan extended a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Pleasure to meet you. Daniel, was it? Daniel nodded curtly. Likewise. Then something strange happened. Lily's smile faded. Her small brows furrowed as she stared at Ethan, confused, almost frightened. Sweetheart? Isabella asked gently. What's wrong? Lily pointed a tiny finger at Ethan. Her voice was soft, but clear. Daddy, I've seen that man before. The entire table went still. Daniel frowned. Lily, where? She looked up at him, uncertain. In Mommy's photo album. He was standing next to Mommy in one picture. And they were fighting. Isabella's face drained of color. Fighting? She whispered. Ethan's fake smile vanished. He quickly laughed it off. Kids imagine things, don't they? But Daniel's expression had changed, his calm eyes narrowing, voice cold. Ethan, how did you know Anna? Ethan hesitated for just a second too long. Then he said smoothly, we were business associates. That's all. But Daniel didn't buy it. Anna had never mentioned any Ethan Cole. And deep inside his chest, something heavy began to move. A fear that maybe Anna's death wasn't just an accident. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The image of Ethan's forced smile kept haunting him. That same man who claimed to have barely known Anna. But Lily's innocent words echoed louder than anything else. Daddy, I've seen that man before. He sat beside the small bed in their tiny apartment, watching Lily sleep. The cracked wall, the flickering bulb, everything around him spoke of a life built from ashes. He reached for the old wooden box under his bed, Anna's box. Inside, everything smelled faintly of lavender. Her letters, a hospital bracelet, and the worn-out photograph album. He opened it slowly. Page after page, her smile lit up his heart until he froze. There it was, a photo of Anna standing outside a construction site. And beside her, Ethan Cole. He wasn't smiling. He was holding her arm. Anna's face looked pale, frightened. Daniel's hands began to shake. He turned the photo over. On the back, in Anna's handwriting, were 3 words. He knows everything. His heart stopped for a moment. What did she mean? Who knew everything? He grabbed his phone and searched the name Ethan Cole. Articles flooded the screen. Business deals, real estate scandals, silent partnerships, and one line caught his eye. Ethan Cole, co-founder of Velvet Luxe Boutique, later transferred full ownership to Isabella Moreau. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. Ethan wasn't just Isabella's fiancé, he was her business partner, the man who had once worked with Anna, and then vanished after she died. He could almost hear Anna's voice in his head. The night she had cried in the hospital room, clutching his hand. Denny, if anything happens, don't trust anyone from the company. A chill ran through him. The next morning, he walked back to the boutique, clutching the photograph tightly. The same store that had humiliated him 2 days ago now looked different, darker somehow. Isabella was inside, reviewing some paperwork. When she looked up and saw him, she smiled gently. Daniel, I didn't think you'd come back. He placed the photograph on her desk. Her smile faded instantly. Where did you get this? She whispered. From Anna's things, Daniel said, his voice steady. Your fiancé knew her. He lied. Isabella's face went pale. Ethan told me he barely met Anna once. Just business. Daniel leaned forward, eyes fierce. Then why was she afraid of him? The room felt suddenly colder. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound between them. Isabella picked up the photograph, staring at Ethan's hand gripping Anna's arm. Her mind raced, flashes of old arguments. Missing reports, strange nights Ethan had come home late. Daniel, she whispered, there's something I never told anyone. He frowned. What is it? Her voice trembled. The night Anna died, Ethan was there. Daniel's world stopped. He could barely breathe. What did you say? He asked quietly. She nodded slowly, tears forming. He said he went to talk to her about the company shares. But when he came back, he looked shaken. The next morning, I got the call about her death. Daniel's fists clenched. He didn't need proof. His heart already knew. Anna hadn't just died. She had been silenced. And the man who took everything from him was now engaged to the woman who once called him brother. The wind that morning carried the smell of rain and something else, a feeling that the past was finally waking up. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, staring at Anna's box again. He had gone through it 1,000 times before, but something inside him whispered, "Look again." He emptied the box onto the table. Photos, notes, a few baby socks. Then his hand brushed against the lining at the bottom. It felt uneven. He frowned and peeled it back, slightly, revealing a small envelope hidden beneath the cardboard layer. Old, sealed, and yellow from time? His heart pounded. On the front, in Anna's handwriting, were 3 words that froze him. "For Bella, urgent." Daniel's throat went dry. He carefully tore it open. Inside was a letter written in fading ink, the strokes shaky, like someone who was writing in pain. He began to read. "Bella, if you get this, it means I didn't have the courage to face you. You were always the strong one, the fighter. I was the dreamer. But I need you to know the truth. Ethan isn't who he says he is. He's been forcing me to sign over our father's company shares. I tried to tell Daniel, but Ethan threatened me. He said if I spoke, something would happen to me or to the baby. If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. Please believe Daniel. He's the only good man left in my life. I love you, Bella, always. And Anna." Daniel dropped the letter, his eyes wide. Every word felt like fire burning through his chest. He stared at the letter, then whispered, "She knew." Lily's sleepy voice came from behind him. "Daddy, what's wrong?" He turned quickly and forced a smile. "Nothing, Angel, just remembering your mom." She nodded softly and climbed onto his lap. "She's an angel now, right?" Daniel hugged her tightly. "Yes, baby. But angels don't stay silent forever." That afternoon, Daniel met Isabella at her office, her face still pale from the last conversation. "Isabella," he said quietly, placing the envelope on her desk. This was hidden in Anna's box. She opened it slowly. As her eyes scanned the words, her lips began to tremble. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be true." Daniel's voice broke the silence. "You always believed in Ethan because you thought he saved your family's business. But he stole it from Anna, from you." Tears streamed down Isabella's cheeks. Her whole body shook. "He told me Anna was unstable, that she was obsessed with him, that she took her own life out of guilt." Daniel's hands clenched. He lied, and now he's living off what she died protecting. Isabella covered her face, her voice muffled with grief. "Oh my God. What have I done?" He looked at her, eyes fierce yet gentle. "You can still make it right, but you'll have to choose your comfort or the truth." She looked up, her tears turning to resolve. "I'll choose the truth." Just then, Isabella's phone buzzed. A new message flashed on the screen from Ethan. "We need to talk alone. Don't bring him." Her heart stopped. Daniel read the message over her shoulder, his jaw tightening. He whispered, "He knows we found something." Isabella's eyes met his, fear and courage colliding. "What do we do?" Daniel took a deep breath. "We end this tonight." The sky had turned black again, thunder growling like a warning from above. Lightning flashed across the city skyline as Daniel and Isabella drove silently toward Ethan's private estate at the edge of town. The windshield wipers fought against the storm, and every flash of lightning lit up Isabella's pale, determined face. "Are you sure about this?" Daniel asked quietly. She nodded. "If we don't face him now, he'll bury the truth forever." Daniel's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He wasn't afraid for himself, but for her. And for Lily, sleeping peacefully miles away with a neighbor. The car stopped before a tall iron gate. Cameras whirred above. Within seconds, the gates opened with a metallic groan, as if the house itself had been expecting them. Inside, Ethan Cole stood by the fireplace, his silhouette outlined by the orange glow. He looked calm. "Too calm?" "Bella," he said smoothly, pouring himself a drink. "You didn't have to come during a storm. You could have called." "I wanted to look you in the eye," she replied coldly. Daniel stepped forward beside her, rain dripping from his coat. Ethan's smirk faltered slightly. "Oh, the poor tailor again. What are you doing here, Daniel?" Daniel's voice was firm, steady, but burning with rage. "Ending the lies." Ethan chuckled, sipping his drink. "Lies? You mean the story your dead wife wrote in her imagination?" Isabella slammed a letter onto the table, Anna's letter. "Recognize this?" For the first time, Ethan's confident expression cracked. He reached for the letter, but Daniel stopped him. "You don't touch her words," Daniel said coldly. Ethan's eyes flickered with something darker now. "So, you found it?" He turned to Isabella, his tone changing, venom creeping into every word. "Do you have any idea what you're doing, Bella? Everything you own, every luxury you flaunt, exists because of me." Isabella's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was sharp. "No, it exists because of Anna, because you took what belonged to her." Ethan's face twisted with anger. That weak little girl couldn't handle pressure. She was going to ruin the company with her sentimental nonsense. "I saved it?" Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "By threatening her? By killing her?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Careful, Daniel. You're talking about things you don't understand." Daniel took a step closer. "Then make me understand." For a moment, silence, just rain pounding against the glass walls. Then Ethan whispered, "It was an accident." Isabella's breath hitched. "What?" He turned toward the window, his voice low. Trembling with guilt he didn't want to show, she refused to sign the papers. She tried to run. I grabbed her arm. She fell down the stairs. The room went cold. Isabella's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel's world blurred, his ears ringing. He saw Anna falling again in his mind, her hand reaching out. Then darkness. Ethan turned around, his tone hard again. "I didn't mean to kill her. But what was done was done. The company couldn't afford a scandal." Daniel lunged, grabbing Ethan by the collar, fury shaking every muscle in his body. "You destroyed my life. You left my daughter without a mother." Ethan smirked, trying to hide his fear. "You think anyone will believe you? You're just a nobody." A loud slap cut his words short. Isabella had struck him, hard. "You're a murderer," she whispered. "And I'll make sure the world knows." Ethan staggered back, clutching his cheek. "You wouldn't dare." Isabella's eyes burned with fury. "You have no idea what I'd do for my sister." At that moment, lightning flashed again, and Daniel noticed a small red light blinking on the table, a phone recording everything. He looked at Isabella. She gave a faint, trembling smile. "I started recording the moment we walked in." Ethan's face drained of color. Outside, the storm raged louder, but inside that room, justice had finally begun to breathe. The storm had passed, but its echoes still lingered. Sirens screamed through the wet streets as police cars surrounded Ethan Cole's mansion. Red and blue lights reflected off the glass walls like shattered truth. Inside, officers moved swiftly. Ethan stood near the fireplace, his face pale but defiant. "You can't arrest me," he barked. "I'm one of the city's biggest investors." Detective Harris, the lead officer, didn't flinch. "You're also the man who just confessed to involuntary manslaughter. We have your voice recording." He pointed at Isabella's phone, still blinking red, still recording. Ethan's composure cracked. "This is a setup. She's lying." Isabella's voice trembled, but her tone was cold. "I'm done lying for you, Ethan." Daniel stood silently in the corner, his hands clenched, watching the man who had ruined his life being handcuffed and dragged away. As Ethan passed him, their eyes met. For the first time, Daniel saw something that wasn't arrogance. It was fear. "Daniel," Ethan hissed under his breath, "you think you've won?" "Money never loses," Daniel replied quietly. "Maybe not, but hearts do." "And you already lost yours?" When the doors finally closed and the sirens faded into the night, Isabella sank onto the couch. Her entire body trembled. For the first time in years, she felt the weight lift from her soul, the lies, the guilt, the blindness. Daniel walked over and placed Anna's letter on the coffee table. "She wanted you to know the truth," he said softly. "She still loved you, Bella." Tears spilled down Isabella's cheeks. "I killed my own sister's peace. I let a monster control me." Daniel shook his head. "No, you set her free." She looked up at him, her eyes red yet filled with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't," he said gently. "Just be the kind of woman Anna wanted you to be." 2 days later, the story exploded across the news. Business tycoon Ethan Cole arrested, hidden death of partner's sister exposed. Every major outlet ran the headline. Reporters crowded the boutique, investors pulled out, and the world that Ethan had built on deceit began to collapse. But amid the chaos, something beautiful happened. Isabella renamed the company. The new sign above the golden doors now read, Anna's Grace, and beneath it, a small inscription, for those who were never heard. A week later, Daniel and Lily stood outside the store. Lily clutched a small teddy bear as she looked up at the sign. "Daddy," she said softly, "that's Mommy's name." Daniel smiled faintly. "Yes, sweetheart. Aunt Bella wanted the world to remember her." The doors opened, and Isabella stepped out, dressed simply, her hair tied back, her expression warm. "Lily," she said gently, kneeling down, "your mommy was the kindest woman I ever knew. And I promise I'll make sure the world knows her story." Lily smiled shyly and hugged her. For a moment, Isabella froze, then slowly wrapped her arms around the little girl. As if holding a piece of her sister once more, Daniel watched quietly. For the first time in years, the ache in his chest began to ease. He looked at the sky, clear, blue, and free of storm clouds. Maybe Anna was watching too. A month passed since Ethan's arrest. The city had already moved on, as it always does. Headlines faded, gossip died. But for Daniel and Lily, life had quietly begun to bloom again. Their small apartment was still the same, but something had changed. There was light now. Lily painted the walls with little stars made of yellow chalk. Every morning, Daniel packed her lunch, brushed her hair, and walked her to school with a smile that wasn't forced anymore. The darkness was fading. One afternoon, as Daniel repaired a torn jacket for a customer in his tiny workshop, a soft knock came at the door. When he opened it, Isabella stood there, dressed in simple clothes, holding a brown envelope. "Bella?" he said, surprised. "You didn't have to come all the way here?" "I wanted to," she replied softly. "I needed to show you something." She handed him the envelope. Inside were legal papers and a letter. Daniel frowned as he read the first page. Co-ownership agreement, Anna's Grace Boutique. He looked up, shocked. "What is this?" Isabella smiled faintly. "Half of everything. The company, the profits, the foundation. You built this dream with her, Daniel. You deserve to be part of it." He shook his head instantly. "No, I can't accept that. I didn't build it." "Anna and you did." Isabella stepped closer, her eyes shimmering. "You carried her dream when everyone else buried it. You raised her daughter when the world turned its back. You didn't just build the dream, Daniel. You kept it alive." For a moment, Daniel couldn't speak. His throat tightened. He looked down, blinking away the tears threatening to fall. "She always believed in family," he whispered. "And now," Isabella said softly, "we are one." That weekend, they held the grand reopening of Anna's Grace. Gone were the cold marble floors and arrogant displays. In their place, warmth. Wooden textures. Shelves lined with affordable clothes made for real people. And in one corner, a small sign read, "For single parents, free clothing for children every month." Daniel stood quietly near the counter, watching the people, poor mothers, young fathers, children laughing as they tried on new clothes. It felt right. It felt like healing. Lily ran toward him, holding a small white dress. "Daddy, Aunt Bella said this one's mine." Daniel smiled and knelt down. "Do you like it?" She nodded eagerly. "It's like the princess dress I saw before." He laughed softly. "Then it's yours, princess." Isabella joined them, smiling through tears. "She would have loved this," she said. Daniel looked around, his voice gentle. "She's here, in every stitch, every smile." For a moment they stood together, not as broken people, but as a family reborn from pain. Outside, the sky turned gold as the sun dipped low, bathing Anna's Grace in a light that felt almost divine. And for the first time, Daniel whispered a silent thank you, not to fate but to Anna, for giving him a reason to live again. A soft rain began to fall that Sunday morning, the kind that doesn't rush, but whispers. Daniel sat by the window, holding a mug of tea, watching Lily draw on the foggy glass. Tiny hearts. A smiley sun. And one word, Mom. He smiled faintly. "You miss her today, huh?" Lily nodded, her little face thoughtful. "Daddy, Aunt Bella said Mommy left something for me. Is that true?" Daniel's smile faded slightly. He hadn't told her, not yet. But maybe it was time. He stood up, walked to the drawer, and took out a small wooden box. It was old, worn, and carved with delicate flowers. "This was your mommy's favorite box," he said softly. Inside, folded neatly, was a letter, edges yellowed with time. He placed it in her tiny hands. "Can I read it?" she whispered. Daniel nodded, his eyes already misty. "Of course, sweetheart." Lily carefully unfolded the paper. Her voice was small and shaky as she began to read. "My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, it means you're old enough to ask about me and brave enough to hear the truth. I may not be there to hold your hand, but I'm always there when you laugh, when you dream, when you help someone smile. Because that's what love does. It stays even when people don't. Your daddy is the kindest man I've ever known. He gave up his dreams so you could have yours. Promise me you'll never forget that he is your hero, not because he's strong, but because he's gentle. And when you look at the stars at night, know that one of them is me, watching you, proud of you. Be kind, my little one. Be brave. And never forget, love always wins. Mom." By the time Lily finished, Daniel was crying silently. She looked up at him with those same blue eyes Anna once had. "Daddy," she whispered, "Mommy's not gone, is she?" Daniel pulled her close, his voice breaking. "No, sweetheart. She never left. She just became light." That evening they visited Anna's Grace. The store was closed for the day, but the lights inside glowed softly. Isabella was arranging new dresses when she saw them. Lily ran to her, clutching the letter. "Aunt Bella, Mommy wrote to me." Isabella knelt, tears forming instantly as Lily showed her the note. She read the last lines again, whispering, "Love always wins." Then she hugged Lily tight and looked at Daniel. "Your daughter, she's got her mother's soul." Daniel smiled faintly. "And her heart." Outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds parted, revealing a clear night sky filled with stars. Lily looked up and pointed. "There, that one's Mommy." Daniel followed her gaze, and for a moment, he could have sworn that star shone a little brighter than the rest. He closed his eyes, whispering, "Thank you, Anna, for everything." And as the golden light of Anna's grace reflected on their faces, 3 souls, one on earth, one in heaven, and one in between, finally found peace. Because in the end, it wasn't about wealth, revenge, or pain. It was about love, and how even a poor single dad could carry heaven in his heart.